The massive alien vessel drifted through the void like a dying whale, its once proud hull now scarred with burn marks and gaping wounds that bled atmosphere into space. Inside the bridge of the Zephyrian cruiser, Talnahara, Captain Veltar pressed his six-fingered hand against the cracked viewport, watching debris from his ship's outer hull tumble away into the darkness. "Status report," he commanded, his voice carrying the weight of desperation despite his attempt to remain calm. The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency, but Veltar could see the fear in their large silver eyes. The Zephyrians had ruled this sector of space for over 2 millennia, their technology far superior to any species they had encountered, until now. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12, reported his tactical officer, her scaled fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Life support failing on 15 levels. Engine core operating at 12% capacity. We've lost main weapons. Shields are down to 8%. Veltar's mandibles clicked in frustration. 3 days ago, they had been pursuing what they thought was a small pirate vessel that had attacked one of their mining operations. The ship's energy signatures were unlike anything in their databases, but it appeared to be roughly the size of a Zephyrian fighter craft. How could something so small have reduced his mighty cruiser to this floating wreck? "Sir," the communications officer called out, her voice trembling, "I'm receiving a transmission from the human vessel." Human? Veltar had heard whispers of this new species from the Outer Rim territories. Primitive creatures who had only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Their technology was supposedly centuries behind the great galactic civilizations. "Put it through." The main display flickered to life, showing the interior of what appeared to be a cramped, utilitarian bridge. Unlike the smooth, organic curves of Zephyrian design, every surface was angular and harsh, covered in blinking lights and primitive mechanical switches. In the center of the chaos sat a figure that made Veltar's blood run cold. The human was small by galactic standards, perhaps only reaching Veltar's chest if they stood side by side. But there was something about the creature's posture, the way its pale eyes seemed to pierce through the display, that spoke of deadly competence. The human's face was weathered and scarred, framed by short gray hair. When it spoke, its voice carried an accent that the universal translator struggled to interpret. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Indomitable," the human said, leaning back in what appeared to be a basic command chair. "I'm guessing you folks are having some technical difficulties over there." Veltar straightened, drawing himself up to his full height. Despite his ship's condition, he was still a captain of the Zephyrian Imperial Fleet. "I am Captain Veltar of the Imperial cruiser Talnahara. You will surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded for your unprovoked attack on our vessel." The human's face split into what Veltar's cultural database identified as a smile, though the expression seemed to contain no warmth. "Unprovoked? Your ship opened fire on us the moment we dropped out of hyperspace. Our cargo manifest shows we're carrying medical supplies to the Kepler colony. Last I checked, that wasn't a crime in this sector." "You were in restricted Imperial space," Veltar snapped, though privately he was beginning to doubt the wisdom of this encounter. His ship outmassed the human vessel by a factor of 50, carried enough firepower to glass a small moon, and was crewed by some of the finest warriors in the galaxy. Yet here he was, dead in space, while the primitive human ship hung in space nearby without so much as a scorch mark on its hull. "Restricted space that wasn't marked on any of our navigation charts," Commander Chen replied calmly. "But hey, water under the bridge. The real question now is whether you want our help, or if you'd prefer to drift here until your life support gives out completely." The bridge fell silent except for the ominous creaking of overstressed hull plates and the irregular hum of failing systems. Veltar's tactical officer caught his attention with a subtle gesture toward her console. The display showed a grim countdown. 43 hours until complete life support failure. "You would help us?" Veltar asked, unable to hide his confusion. In Zephyrian culture, showing mercy to a defeated enemy was seen as weakness. "After we attacked you?" "It's what we do," Chen shrugged. "Besides, stranding a ship full of people in space doesn't sit right with me, regardless of the circumstances. My engineering team thinks they can jury-rig something to get your life support stable and maybe give you enough power to limp to the nearest station." Veltar's second-in-command, Sub-Captain Kethrall, leaned closer to whisper in his superior's ear. "Sir, this could be a trap. Perhaps they wish to board our ship to steal our technology or take prisoners." The captain considered this, but another glance at his ship's status displays convinced him they had little choice. "What do you require from us?" "Permission to dock with your ship and access to your engineering sections. My people will need to work with yours to assess the damage and figure out what we can fix with what we've got on hand." "And in return?" "In return, you don't die horribly in the vacuum of space," Chen said, with that same unsettling smile. "Look, Captain, I know trust doesn't come easy when you've just been in a shooting match, but I'm offering you a lifeline here. Your ship took a beating, and frankly, I'm impressed it's still in one piece." Veltar made his decision. "Very well. You may dock. But I warn you, any attempt at deception will be met with lethal force." "Understood. We'll approach your port docking bay in 30 minutes. Indomitable out." The display went dark, leaving Veltar staring at his reflection in the black screen. Around him, his crew worked frantically to prepare for the human arrival, checking weapons and running security protocols. But the captain found himself wondering how a ship barely 1/50th the size of his own had managed to disable them so completely. "Sir," his science officer called out, "I've been analyzing the weapon signatures from the human ship. The energy patterns are unlike anything in our databases." "Show me." The tactical display lit up with a three-dimensional representation of the recent battle. Veltar watched in fascination as the human ship's attack pattern was replayed in slow motion. Instead of the massive energy beams or projectile weapons favored by most galactic civilizations, the human ship had fired what appeared to be small guided missiles. "These projectiles," the science officer continued, highlighting one of the weapons in the display, "they don't carry conventional explosive warheads. Instead, they appear to contain some form of directed electromagnetic pulse generator. When they impact our hull, they create localized system failures that cascade through our neural network conduits." Veltar studied the data with growing unease. Zephyrian technology relied heavily on bioneural networks that integrated seamlessly with their organic components. A weapon specifically designed to disrupt such systems would be devastatingly effective against their ships, yet completely useless against most other galactic civilizations who used purely mechanical or quantum-based technologies. "How could they have known our system vulnerabilities?" he asked. "Unknown, sir, but the precision of their targeting suggests detailed knowledge of our ship's design." The docking bay's status lights flickered from red to amber as the human ship approached. Through the observation ports, Veltar could see the small vessel maneuvering with impossible precision. Where Zephyrian ships flowed through space like living creatures, the human craft moved with mechanical efficiency, its angular hull bristling with sensor arrays and weapon mounts that seemed to track every movement. A shudder ran through the Tal Nahara as the human ship made contact with the docking clamps. Veltar made his way to the docking bay, accompanied by a full security detail. His warriors wore their ceremonial armor and carried plasma rifles, more for show than any expectation of combat. If the humans had wanted to destroy his ship, they clearly had the capability to do so already. The airlock cycled with a hiss of equalizing pressure, and Veltar got his first close look at humanity. Commander Chen emerged first, and the captain was struck by how small she appeared outside the confines of her command chair. She wore a simple gray uniform with minimal decoration, and her movements were economical and precise. Behind her came two other humans, both carrying what appeared to be primitive tool cases. "Captain Veltar," Chen said, offering a slight nod that Veltar's cultural database suggested was a human gesture of respect. "Permission to come aboard?" "Granted," Veltar replied formally. "I confess, Commander Chen, that I am curious about your species' capabilities. Your ship is remarkably small, yet it bested one of our most advanced cruisers." Chen's expression grew serious. "With respect, Captain, your ship bested itself. We just gave it a little push in the right direction." She gestured to one of her companions, a tall man with graying temples. "This is Chief Engineer Rodriguez. He'll be leading our repair efforts, and this is Dr. Patel, our systems specialist." Veltar nodded to each human in turn, noting how they seemed to take in every detail of their surroundings with quick, analytical glances. "My engineering staff will escort you to the damaged sections. I trust you understand that you will be monitored at all times." "Of course," Chen agreed. "Mind if I ask you something, Captain?" "Speak. When you first detected our ship, what did your sensors tell you about our capabilities?" Veltar considered the question carefully. "Our scans indicated a small vessel with primitive propulsion and basic defensive systems. Energy output suggested limited weapons capacity." Chen nodded slowly. "And based on that information, you decided we posed no significant threat?" "Correct. We assumed you were smugglers or pirates using an outdated vessel." "There's your first mistake," Chen said, not unkindly. "In human military doctrine, we have a saying, assume your enemy is smarter than you are, because they probably are. You saw what you expected to see, and you reacted accordingly." The group began moving through the corridors toward the engineering sections, their footsteps echoing in the damaged passages. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the smell of burned circuitry hung heavy in the recycled air. "You speak as if your species has extensive military experience," Veltar observed. "We do," Chen replied simply. "Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We've gotten very good at it." They reached the main engineering deck, where Veltar's technical staff waited nervously. The damage was extensive. Massive conduits hung loose from the ceiling, sparks cascaded from overloaded control panels, and the central power core flickered with an unhealthy blue-white light. Chief Engineer Rodriguez whistled low as he surveyed the destruction. "Well, that's not good," he said, pulling out a handheld scanner. "Dr. Patel, you seeing this?" The systems specialist was already running her own diagnostic equipment over the damaged bio-neural networks. "Cascade failure in the primary control matrix. The EMP bursts disrupted the organic components, but the synthetic backups should have kicked in." "Should have," Rodriguez agreed, "but looks like they designed the system with single points of failure. Very elegant, very efficient, but not exactly robust." Veltar felt a flash of indignation. "Our technology has served us well for centuries. It is far more advanced than anything your species has developed." "Advanced, sure," Rodriguez said, kneeling beside a damaged control cluster. "But advancement isn't always about sophistication. Sometimes it's about reliability under stress." He looked up at the Zephyrian engineering team. "Mind if I ask how often you folks fight actual battles?" Veltar's chief engineer, an elderly Zephyrian named Morthek, stepped forward. "The Imperial fleet maintains order throughout this sector. We rarely encounter resistance that requires extensive combat." "Right," Rodriguez nodded. "So your ships are designed for patrol duties and intimidation, not prolonged engagement with an enemy that shoots back." He stood and wiped his hands on a rag. "Commander Chen, we can fix this, but it's going to require some creative engineering." As the human team began their assessment, Veltar found himself drawn into conversation with Commander Chen. Despite himself, he was beginning to respect the small human's tactical mind. "How did you know our vulnerabilities?" he asked directly. Chen was quiet for a moment, watching her people work alongside his crew. We didn't, initially. But when you opened fire, our defensive systems had about 30 seconds to analyze your weapons and targeting patterns, while our shields absorbed the damage. Our AI ran probability models on your technology base and identified the most likely weaknesses. In 30 seconds? Human survival has always depended on our ability to adapt quickly to changing circumstances, Chen explained. We build our technology to be flexible, redundant, and field repairable. Every human ship carries weapons and equipment designed to exploit a dozen different potential enemy weaknesses. Veltar watched the humans working with his crew, noting how they seemed to communicate complex technical concepts despite the language barrier. Their approach was entirely different from Zephyrian methodology. Where his people relied on integrated, seamless systems, the humans appeared to favor modular, adaptable solutions. Your ship, Veltar said. It appears much smaller than it actually is, Chen smiled. Good catch. We call it a stealth frigate. Most of our ship's mass is in armor plating and redundant systems. What looks like a small cargo hauler is actually a heavily armed and armored warship designed to punch way above its weight class. Deception. Misdirection, Chen corrected. There's a difference. We're not hiding what we are, we're just not advertising it. Rodriguez's voice called out from across the engineering bay. Commander, I think we've got a solution, but it's going to require some major modifications to their power distribution network. As Veltar watched the humans work to save his ship and crew, he began to understand that humanity represented something entirely new in galactic politics. These weren't just another primitive species stumbling into space. They were a civilization that had learned to fight and survive in ways the established powers had never encountered. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for humanity, or whether humanity was ready for the galaxy. Either way, Veltar had the uncomfortable feeling that everything was about to change. The repair work had been ongoing for 18 hours, and Veltar was beginning to see humanity in an entirely different light. What had started as a reluctant acceptance of help had evolved into something approaching professional admiration. Chief Engineer Rodriguez had somehow managed to create a hybrid power distribution system using components salvaged from the human ship combined with repaired Zephyrian bio-neural networks. The solution was inelegant by Imperial standards, but it worked. More importantly, it was designed to be maintained and upgraded using readily available materials. The key, Rodriguez explained to Morthek as they stood before the improvised control panel, is modularity. See these junction boxes? Each one can be bypassed or replaced independently. If one section fails, the system routes around it automatically. Morthek examined the human technology with obvious fascination. But this approach requires significantly more physical space and resources than our integrated networks. Sure does, Rodriguez agreed cheerfully. But it also means that battle damage doesn't cascade through your entire ship. You lose one system, you lose one system, not everything connected to it. Dr. Patel looked up from where she was calibrating the bio-neural interfaces. We've managed to isolate your organic components from electromagnetic interference using a technique we developed for protecting human neural implants. It won't stop a direct hit, but it should prevent the kind of cascade failures you experienced during our engagement. Veltar found himself standing beside Commander Chen in the observation gallery overlooking the main engineering bay. Below them, humans and Zephyrians worked side by side, sharing knowledge and techniques that their species had developed independently over millennia. Your people adapt quickly, Veltar observed. Survival trait, Chen replied. Humans evolved on a world that was actively trying to kill us. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, predators, diseases, natural disasters. The ones who couldn't adapt didn't pass on their genes. And yet you also developed cooperation. Your crew works together with an efficiency I have rarely seen. Chen nodded. Another survival trait. Individual humans are pretty fragile, but humans working together? That's when we become dangerous. The observation was interrupted by an urgent chime from the bridge communication system. Veltar activated the display to see his tactical officer's worried face. Captain, we're detecting 3 Imperial Navy vessels approaching our position. They'll be within weapons range in approximately 2 hours. Veltar felt his stomach drop. Identification? The heavy cruiser, Keth Moran, under Admiral Sektar, escorted by destroyers Velthara and Neftal. Chen raised an eyebrow. Friends of yours? Admiral Sektar is politically ambitious, Veltar said carefully. When my ship failed to report on schedule, he likely volunteered to investigate. If he finds my vessel damaged and in the company of an unknown alien ship, he'll assume we're hostile and attack, Chen finished. How reasonable is this, Admiral? Sektar believes that shows of force are the proper response to any perceived threat. He would view any alliance between Imperial forces and unknown aliens as potential treason. Chen was already moving toward the communication panel. Indomitable. This is Commander Chen. I need you to prep for immediate undocking and combat readiness. The voice that responded was crisp and professional. Acknowledged, Commander. Engineering reports all systems nominal. Weapons are charged and ready. Veltar stared at the human officer. You would fight 3 Imperial ships to protect us? I would fight to protect innocent lives, Chen corrected. Your crew didn't do anything wrong except follow orders. I'm not about to let them get caught in the crossfire of Imperial politics. Commander, Veltar said urgently, you don't understand the firepower you're facing. Admiral Sektar's flagship alone carries enough weapons to destroy a small moon. Your ship, no matter how advanced, cannot possibly stand against 3 Imperial vessels. Chen's expression grew cold. Captain, with all due respect, you thought 1 Imperial cruiser could handle my ship. How did that work out for you? Before Veltar could respond, Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice echoed through the engineering bay. Attention all personnel! We've got the main power core stabilized and life support back to full capacity. Engines are still operating at reduced power, but we've got maneuvering capability. Veltar felt a surge of hope. If his ship could move, perhaps they could escape before Sektar arrived. But Chen shook her head as if reading his thoughts. Running isn't an option. If your admiral is as aggressive as you say, he'll pursue us. Better to deal with this here and now. What do you propose? Chen smiled, and Veltar was beginning to recognize that particular expression as a very dangerous sign. We're going to have a conversation. But first, I need to know everything you can tell me about those ships' capabilities, crew complements, and tactical doctrines. For the next hour, Veltar found himself providing detailed intelligence about Imperial Navy vessels to a human commander. Under normal circumstances, such an action would be considered treason of the highest order, but these were far from normal circumstances. Chen absorbed the information with the focused intensity of a professional warrior. She asked pointed questions about weapon systems, shield configurations, crew rotations, and command structures. Her tactical knowledge was impressive, and she seemed to understand the implications of Imperial naval doctrine better than many Zephyrian officers. Your admiral's weakness, Chen said finally, is that he's fighting the last war. Imperial tactics assume technological superiority and overwhelming firepower. They work great against enemies who play by the same rules. And humans don't play by those rules? Humans don't play by anyone's rules except our own, Chen said. We make them up as we go along. The bridge communication system chimed again. This time, the main display showed the angular features of Admiral Sektar himself. The Admiral was an imposing figure even by Zephyrian standards, his ceremonial armor gleaming with rank insignia and battle honors. Captain Veltar, Sektar's voice carried clear disapproval. Explain your current situation. Admiral, my ship suffered critical damage during an encounter with an unknown vessel. We are currently undergoing emergency repairs with assistance from the alien crew. Sektar's eyes narrowed. You have allowed aliens aboard an Imperial vessel? This is highly irregular. Captain. Sir. My ship was dead in space with total life support failure imminent. The alien commander offered assistance. And you accepted aid from a potentially hostile force without authorization? Sektar's voice grew cold. Such decisions require approval from Fleet Command. Chen stepped into view of the display. Admiral Sektar, I presume. I'm Commander Chen of the Earth vessel Indomitable. Perhaps I can clarify the situation. The Admiral's expression shifted to one of cold fury. You will not address me directly, alien. Captain Veltar, order your vessel to move clear of the unknown ship immediately. We will destroy the alien craft and conduct a full investigation of your actions. Admiral, Veltar began, I must protest. The human crew has conducted itself honorably and provided life-saving assistance to my ship and crew. Your protests are noted and dismissed, Sektar replied curtly. You have 10 minutes to separate your vessels. Chen stepped closer to the display. Admiral, I don't think you fully understand what you're dealing with here. I understand perfectly, Sektar snapped. I see a primitive alien vessel that has somehow managed to damage an Imperial cruiser. Such capability represents a clear threat to Imperial security. The alien ship will be destroyed, and its crew will be taken for interrogation. That's not going to happen, Chen said calmly. Sektar's mandibles flared in anger. You dare threaten Imperial forces? I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating a fact. You're not going to destroy my ship, and you're not going to take my crew prisoner. If you try, things are going to get unpleasant very quickly. The Admiral's laugh was harsh and mocking. One small alien ship against 3 Imperial vessels? Your arrogance is astounding. Chen's smile was razor-sharp. Admiral, let me tell you something about humans. We've been the underdog in every major conflict in our history. We're very good at it. In fact, we've turned it into an art form. The display flickered as Chen activated a secondary transmission. Suddenly, the tactical screen showed the approach vectors of not one human ship, but 12, sleek, angular vessels that had somehow appeared at the edge of the system without being detected. What you're looking at, Chen explained conversationally, is the Earth Fleet's 3rd Expeditionary Squadron. They've been shadowing my ship at a distance just in case we ran into unfriendly locals. Admiral, meet Admiral Martinez aboard the heavy cruiser Constitution. Admiral, say hello to Admiral Sektar of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. A new voice joined the transmission, speaking with calm authority. Admiral Sektar, this is Admiral Elena Martinez of the Earth Defense Force. I believe there's been a misunderstanding here. Sektar stared at the tactical display in shock. 12 human ships, each roughly the size of an Imperial destroyer, had somehow approached to within weapons range without being detected. His own fleet's sensors showed no indication of their presence until Chen had revealed them. How? Sektar whispered. Stealth technology, Chen explained helpfully. We learned a long time ago that the best way to win a fight is to make sure your enemy doesn't know there's going to be a fight until it's too late. Admiral Martinez's voice cut through the tension. Admiral Sektar, Commander Chen has briefed me on the current situation. I understand there's been some concern about her actions in rendering aid to Captain Veltar's vessel. I want to assure you that such assistance is standard operating procedure for Earth Fleet vessels. This is Imperial space, Sektar managed. You have no authority here. Actually, Martinez replied, we're currently in unaligned space according to the most recent Galactic Accord mapping. But that's a technicality. The real issue here is that you're threatening to fire on a ship that's engaged in a rescue operation. That's not something Earth Fleet can allow. Veltar watched the exchange with growing amazement. Somehow, the humans had managed to turn a desperate situation into a position of strength. 3 Imperial ships might be able to destroy 1 human frigate, but 12 ships changed the tactical equation entirely. "What do you want?" Sektar asked finally. "Safe passage for all vessels involved," Martinez replied. "Captain Veltar's ship is repaired and can return to Imperial space. My squadron will escort Commander Chen's vessel out of this sector. Everyone goes home, nobody gets hurt, and we all pretend this never happened." "And if I refuse?" Chen's expression grew very serious. "Admiral, you really don't want to refuse. Trust me on this." Sektar stared at the tactical display for a long moment. His 3 ships were powerful, but they were outnumbered 4-1 by vessels that had already demonstrated advanced stealth capabilities. Moreover, the human ships were positioned to attack from multiple vectors simultaneously, a tactical nightmare for any fleet commander. "This matter is not concluded," Sektar said finally. "The Imperial High Command will hear of this incident." "I'm sure they will," Martinez agreed pleasantly. "And when they do, please make sure you mention that Earth Fleet is interested in opening diplomatic relations. We'd hate for future encounters to be as tense as this one." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Veltar looked at Commander Chen with something approaching awe. "How long have your ships been waiting out there?" "Since before we encountered your vessel," Chen admitted. "Standard Earth Fleet protocol for first contact situations. Send in a small, fast ship to make initial contact while maintaining overwhelming backup at a safe distance." "You planned this entire encounter?" "Not exactly. We planned for the possibility that first contact might go badly. When you opened fire on us, my people moved into position just in case things escalated." Chen paused. "Which they did." Veltar realized that humanity had just demonstrated a level of strategic thinking that the Imperial Navy had never encountered. The humans hadn't just won a tactical engagement, they had engineered the entire situation to their advantage from the very beginning. As he watched Admiral Sektar's ships withdraw from the system, Veltar understood that the galaxy had just changed in ways that no one could fully comprehend yet. And humanity was just getting started. 6 months after the incident that would later be known as the Kepler encounter, Captain Veltar stood in the conference chamber of the Imperial High Command on Zephyr Prime. The ornate room, with its flowing bioarchitectural curves and living wall displays, felt oddly primitive after his exposure to human technology and tactical thinking. Around the crescent-shaped table sat the most powerful military leaders in the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral Sektar occupied the seat of honor, his ceremonial armor freshly polished and his expression smugly confident. To his right sat Grand Admiral Neth Kara, the supreme commander of all Imperial forces, her ancient features bearing the weight of centuries of military experience. "Captain Veltar," Grand Admiral Neth Kara began, her voice carrying the authority of absolute command. "Your report regarding the human encounter has been reviewed by this council. We find your conclusions disturbing." Veltar straightened. "Honored Admiral, I stand by every word of my assessment. Humanity represents a paradigm shift in galactic military doctrine. They possess capabilities and tactical approaches that our current defensive posture cannot adequately address." Admiral Sektar leaned forward. "The captain's judgment has clearly been compromised by his extended contact with the aliens. I submit that his recommendations should be dismissed as the product of Stockholm Syndrome." "With respect, Admiral Sektar," Veltar replied, his voice carefully controlled. "You withdrew from the encounter without engaging the human forces. My assessment is based on direct observation of their capabilities under combat conditions." The chamber fell silent. Challenging a superior officer's tactical decisions in front of the High Command was career suicide. But Veltar had spent the last 6 months analyzing every aspect of the human encounter. He had reached conclusions that kept him awake during his rest cycles. "Explain," Grand Admiral Nethkara commanded. Veltar activated the chamber's holographic display system. Three-dimensional representations of the encounter filled the air above the table, showing ship positions, weapons trajectories, and tactical movements with precise detail. The humans demonstrated four critical capabilities that our intelligence services had never encountered, he began. First, advanced stealth technology that allowed 12 heavy vessels to approach within weapons range undetected. Second, weapons systems specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in bio-neural networks. Third, modular engineering approaches that allow rapid field repairs and modifications. Fourth, and most importantly, strategic planning that accounted for variables we never considered. Such as? Nethkara asked. They anticipated that their initial contact might result in conflict, and they positioned forces accordingly. They also predicted that Imperial response would follow standard fleet protocols, and they prepared countermeasures. Most significantly, they demonstrated restraint when they could have simply destroyed my vessel and eliminated potential witnesses. Admiral Sektar's mandibles clicked dismissively. You credit them with far too much strategic intelligence. Their actions were opportunistic at best. Veltar turned to face his former superior directly. Admiral, in the 6 months since our encounter, human ships have been reported in 17 different sectors. In every case, they have demonstrated the same pattern. Initial contact appears benign, but detailed analysis reveals overwhelming tactical superiority held in reserve. Impossible, Sektar scoffed. Our intelligence networks would have detected such widespread deployment. Would they? Veltar asked. Our intelligence services look for energy signatures, mass displacements, and communication patterns that match known galactic technologies. Human stealth capabilities render their ships effectively invisible to our standard detection methods. Grand Admiral Nethkara studied the tactical displays with growing concern. What is your assessment of human military capacity? Veltar had dreaded this question, but he had prepared for it. Based on observed capabilities and strategic deployment patterns, I estimate that humanity possesses at least 200 vessels of destroyer class or larger. Their manufacturing capacity appears to be distributed across multiple star systems, making their industrial base difficult to target. Most critically, their tactical doctrine is entirely defensive in nature. Defensive? Sektar laughed harshly. They disabled your ship with ease. After we fired first, Veltar pointed out. In every reported encounter, human forces have responded only to direct threats. They have not initiated hostilities, claimed territory, or made demands. Their behavior suggests a species that is prepared for war but prefers peace. Another member of the High Command, Admiral Cortron, spoke for the first time. What do you recommend, Captain? Immediate diplomatic contact through official channels, Veltar replied without hesitation. Humanity clearly possesses the military capability to be a significant threat to Imperial security. However, they have also demonstrated restraint and willingness to cooperate. This represents an opportunity to establish relations before misunderstandings lead to conflict. Unacceptable, Sektar declared. The Imperial Navy has maintained order in this galaxy for 2 millennia. We do not negotiate with primitives who threaten our vessels. They didn't threaten your vessels, Veltar shot back. You threatened theirs, and they demonstrated that such threats were meaningless. There is a significant difference. Grand Admiral Nethkara raised a hand for silence. Captain Veltar, you have had the most extensive contact with human forces of any Imperial officer. In your professional opinion, what would be the result of direct military conflict with humanity? The question hung in the air like a death sentence. Veltar knew that his answer would shape Imperial policy for generations to come. He also knew that telling the truth would likely end his career. Honored Admiral, he began slowly, in my professional opinion, Humanity possesses the tactical advantages necessary to inflict catastrophic damage on Imperial forces before we could bring our numerical superiority to bear. Their stealth technology, combined with weapons specifically designed to exploit our system vulnerabilities, would allow them to strike at targets of their choosing while remaining effectively invulnerable to retaliation. You're suggesting that a species that discovered faster-than-light travel barely 2 centuries ago could defeat the Imperial Navy? Sektar's voice dripped with contempt. I'm suggesting that they wouldn't need to defeat the Imperial Navy, Veltar replied. They would only need to make the cost of victory unacceptable. Human tactical doctrine appears to be based on asymmetric warfare principles. They don't fight fair, and they don't fight honorably. They fight to win. The chamber erupted in angry voices as the implications of Veltar's assessment became clear. For the first time in over 1,000 years, the Zephyrian Empire was facing a potential adversary that could not be simply overwhelmed through superior technology and numbers. Grand Admiral Nethkara called for order, her ancient voice cutting through the chaos. Captain Veltar, you are dismissed. We will consider your recommendations. As Veltar left the chamber, he caught a glimpse of the tactical displays still showing the human ships in their perfect attack formations. He wondered if the High Command truly understood what they were facing, or if pride and tradition would blind them to the realities of human military capability. 3 weeks later, Veltar received new orders. He was being transferred to the frontier station at Kepler with instructions to establish a monitoring post for human activity in the sector. The assignment was officially a promotion, but Veltar recognized it for what it was: exile. His first day at the frontier station brought an unexpected visitor. Commander Sarah Chen's face appeared on his personal communication display, wearing the same slight smile he remembered from their first encounter. "Captain Veltar," she said warmly, "I heard about your new assignment. Congratulations." "Commander Chen," Veltar replied, genuinely pleased to see the human officer. "I confess I am surprised to hear from you." "I wanted to thank you," Chen said simply. "Your report to the Imperial High Command was leaked to several civilian news networks. It started some interesting conversations about human-Zephyrian relations." "Leaked?" Veltar felt a chill run through him. If the High Command discovered he had been sharing intelligence with human forces. "Not by you," Chen assured him quickly. "We have our own intelligence sources within the Imperial government, people who believe that cooperation is preferable to conflict. Such individuals would be considered traitors or visionaries," Chen shrugged. "Depends on how things work out, I suppose." Veltar considered this. "What do you want, Commander?" "Your new posting puts you in an ideal position to facilitate unofficial communications between our species. Earth Fleet would like to establish a dialogue with reasonable Imperial officers before the politicians on both sides have a chance to screw things up." "And if I refuse?" Chen's expression grew serious. "Then we'll find another way. But I'd prefer to work with someone I trust. Someone who understands what's really at stake here." Veltar thought about the High Command chamber, with its proud traditions and ancient prejudices. He thought about Admiral Sektar's casual dismissal of human capabilities and the Council's apparent unwillingness to face uncomfortable truths. "What kind of dialogue did you have in mind?" "Information sharing, mainly. Early warning systems for potential incidents, joint responses to mutual threats, maybe some limited technology exchange. Nothing that would compromise either side's security interests." "You're describing the foundation of a military alliance." "I'm describing the foundation of survival," Chen corrected. "Captain, the galaxy is a big place, and humanity has been out here long enough to know that there are threats neither of our species could face alone. The Devourers in the Galactic Rim, the hive mind expansion in the Magellanic sectors, the energy beings in the galactic core. Sooner or later, we're going to need each other." Veltar had heard rumors of these threats, distant dangers that the Imperial Navy dismissed as the concerns of frontier worlds and lesser civilizations. But if humanity was already aware of them, how long have your people been exploring the galaxy? Longer than we've been willing to admit, Chen said quietly. We've been watching, learning, preparing. The Kepler encounter wasn't first contact, Captain. It was a test. A test of what? Whether the established galactic powers were ready to accept that the universe had changed. Whether species like the Zephyrians could adapt to new realities, or whether they would cling to old assumptions until those assumptions destroyed them. Veltar felt the weight of history pressing down on him. The decision he made in the next few moments would ripple through the future in ways he could barely imagine. What do you need from me? Chen's smile was warm and genuine. Just keep doing what you've been doing, Captain. Tell the truth, even when people don't want to hear it. Help us understand your people and help your people understand us. The future is coming whether we're ready or not. The question is whether we'll face it together or apart. As the transmission ended, Veltar looked out the observation port of his new command at the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, human ships moved through the darkness with purposes and capabilities that the galaxy was only beginning to understand. The age of human expansion had begun, and Veltar found himself hoping that his people would be wise enough to adapt to this new reality. Because one thing was certain. Humanity was not going to adapt to anyone else's expectations. They never had, and they never would. And perhaps, Veltar thought, that was exactly what the galaxy needed.